This is Bob Chamberlin, the elected Chief Councillor of the Kwekwe-Sutinu-Chukwamis First Nations of Guilford Island. We're part of the Musqueam-Ag-Zaudeno Tribal Council. Our collective territory is known to many of you as the Broughtan Archapeligo, and it is incumbent upon me to pass on a message to everybody that enjoys the benefits of wild salmon, whether it's as a First Nations person who knows and understands that we have Aboriginal rights and the fact that the food fishery is so vital to all of our existence and the basis of much of our culture. We've all experienced too well over the past decades the dwindling salmon stocks on the coast of British Columbia. Of course, this has laid waste to the commercial fishery coastwide, a fishery which sustained many, if not all, of the isolated communities found up and down this coast. And today, we have nothing but empty slips at the docks where salmon fishing boats used to dock. Of course, we must understand the mismanagement of this industry by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. We have to understand that there are also environmental effects or impacts which will affect the wild salmon. Water levels in the Fraser are another thing to be concerned with. But I want to bring to your attention and revisit for many of you and raise the awareness of others of the threats which are now coming to light from the Stephen Harper government in relationship to threats to wild salmon. Of course, we're all aware of the oil and gas pipelines and the potential that this has to lay waste to the environment as well as to the Fraser and other waterways. We also need to be aware of the railroads, and if this is going to be a greater avenue for the export of oil to Asia. We have to be aware also of the hydroelectrical visions of the provincial government. Of course, I'm talking about Site C Dam and how this is going to have an impact on the water quality, among other things. But the part that I am most troubled with as the leader of the Kwekwe-Sutinu-Chukwamis First Nation, of course, is fish farms. Our First Nation received a letter from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans just this past week. And in that letter, it identifies one of the fish farm companies operating in our territory and the wish to expand this operation from 10 tons as it's licensed now to 460 tons. Now, this is a very significant event for a variety of reasons. Of course, we wonder, why do they need more brood stock unless they're gearing up for major expansions? Because to go from 10 tons to 460 is going to represent a lot of potential product which will need to find its way into the waters of British Columbia. This was further confirmed by an email from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans subsequent to the letter we received, where it let us know that our First Nation will be receiving this coming week 4 more letters regarding 4 additional fish farm expansion applications which are now coming to light. I know some of you are wondering, how does this tie in with the Cohen recommendation? The recommendation that called for a moratorium on fish farm expansion and new fish farm sites. In the letter we received from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, it stated that it was going to respect this recommendation of the Cohen Commission, that there would be no expansions in the Discovery Channel area, in the Campbell River area, and so on. But you need to understand, it is an absolute imperative for the outward migrating salmon smolts, the wild ones, which are being respected through the Cohen recommendations. They must, and I'll underline that, they must pass the Broughtan Archipelago and the northern tip of Vancouver Island, where all of these expansions of the aquaculture industry are now coming to light. The recommendations from the Cohen Commission highlighted for all of us the need for further science, for a better understanding of the potential for disease transfer from open net cage fish farms to the outward migrating wild salmon smolts. And it's time for us to hold this government to account. This is an urgent message to all the people who rely upon wild salmon in British Columbia. They are now facing a threat which is in complete defiance to Cohen, and it is yet another example of the Stephen Harper government laying waste to democracy, and in doing so, putting at risk Aboriginal rights for First Nations people on the coast of British Columbia and right up to the headwaters of the Fraser and other rivers. So I urge all of you to take a stand, to start writing letters to the editors for First Nations people, start demanding that your chief and council stand up and do what's right for wild salmon. We cannot sit back idly and hope something gets done. It is up to you. It's up to me. I want to lock arms with all of you and do what's necessary to save wild salmon. Gaelic is that.